What if I told you that him going quiet doesn't mean he doesn't care? It might mean he cares more than he's ready to admit. Because when a man starts pulling away, it's not always a sign of disinterest. Sometimes it's the clearest sign of how much he feels. See, many people assume distance equals disconnection, but often distance equals conflict. A man can feel something powerful, something that shakes his sense of control, and instead of leaning into it, he steps back, not because he wants less of you, but because he wants too much and doesn't know how to handle it. That's the hidden struggle most don't see. He may tell himself to stay guarded, to not fall too deep too fast, and so he creates space. But that space isn't empty. It's filled with hesitation, overthinking, and an emotional tug of war. His silence isn't the absence of care, it's the evidence of it. And here's the truth: if he's ignoring you on purpose, that's manipulation. But if he's fighting his feelings, you'll notice it in his actions. The way he still checks in, the way he still pays attention, the way his guard drops when he forgets to hide it. If this is hitting home for you right now, stay with me, because I'm going to show you how to tell the difference between a man who's not interested and a man who's just afraid of how much he feels. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes silence is not rejection. Sometimes it's the quiet sound of someone struggling with feelings they're not ready to deal with. We're often taught that if a person cares, they'll always show up and be present. And yes, most of the time, that's true. But there's another side of the story that isn't talked about enough. There are times when a man steps back, not because he doesn't care about you, but because he cares too much. When he meets you and you awaken something powerful inside him, something real, it shakes the control he thought he had. He believed he knew what he wanted, who he was, and how to protect his heart. But then you appeared, and suddenly the rules he lived by don't fit anymore. For many men, strong emotions are unfamiliar ground. Maybe he's been hurt in the past. Maybe he promised himself he would never feel that exposed again. So instead of moving closer, he keeps his distance because that feels safer than the risk of falling too deep. But here's the truth. His silence is about him, not about you. It's his inner battle between fear and desire, between safety and surrender. The biggest mistake you can make in that moment is to take it personally and chase after his answers. When a man starts pulling away, even after showing clear interest before, it's easy to think he's losing attraction or just playing games. But in many situations, the truth is far more complicated than that. Emotional conflict is something countless men deal with, even those who truly like the woman they're with. This conflict shows up when what they feel doesn't match what they believe they should feel, or when their emotions collide with old fears and life pressures. Attraction can be exciting, but it can also feel unsettling, especially for someone who has spent years building strong walls around his heart. For some men, emotions grow slowly, at a pace they can manage. But sometimes those emotions arrive with unexpected intensity, so strong and sudden that it feels like losing control. Picture a man who has always been confident, logical, and steady. Then he meets someone who sparks a connection so deep he wasn't expecting it at all. That bond can bring up parts of him he thought were long gone, or maybe ones he never knew he had. Longings for closeness, dreams of building something lasting, a sense of belonging he didn't realize he craved. It should feel wonderful, but instead it can seem dangerous to the safe emotional world he's built. The reason is simple. Powerful feelings demand vulnerability. They ask for openness. They require breaking down walls that have stood for years. And for many men, that step is far from easy. Some have been taught to believe emotions are risky, that they make you weak, or that letting someone in will always end in pain. Others have lived through heartbreak, betrayal, or disappointment that taught them the safest choice is to keep people at a distance. So when a woman shows up who makes them feel so much, the instinct isn't always to come closer. Sometimes it's to step back and regain control. This back and forth inside him is exhausting. On one side, there's real attraction, respect, and the desire to be near you. On the other side, there's the fear of what that closeness might cost him. These men often find themselves thinking about her constantly, drawn to her presence, yet at the same time creating distance as a way to control what they feel. It's not that they don't want her in their life, it's that the depth of what they feel forces them to face parts of themselves they've been avoiding for years. The signs of this conflict can be subtle. One day he's attentive, engaged, and completely present. The next, he's harder to reach, less responsive, or emotionally quiet. This inconsistency doesn't always mean manipulation. More often, it's a mirror of the battle happening inside him. He may try to slow things down so he can process what's happening, so he doesn't make choices based only on his emotions. From the outside, though, it can easily look like mixed signals, indifference or avoidance. It's important to see that emotional conflict in men doesn't automatically mean the relationship is failing. Many men work through this phase, especially when they feel safe enough to open up. The challenge is that while they are stuck in this inner struggle, they don't always talk openly about it. Some are scared that admitting how deeply they feel will make them look too vulnerable, while others worry that it will create expectations they're not ready to live up to. In moments like these, it's natural for a woman to wonder if she did something wrong, to question herself, or to doubt his intentions. But the truth is that his struggle usually has less to do with her actions and more to do with his own readiness to accept deep emotional intimacy. The attraction is real, the desire is real. What's missing is his comfort with what those feelings mean for his life and whether he's ready to act on them. When a man is stuck in this place of emotional conflict, his actions can look confusing and even contradictory. He may plan a thoughtful date one week, then cancel the next. He might share deeply in a conversation, then go quiet and distant soon after. This doesn't mean his feelings have disappeared. It means he's trying to find a way to keep them from taking over. Understanding this takes empathy, but it also requires self-respect. It's one thing to know that someone is fighting their own emotional battle. It's another to put your own needs aside forever while they figure it out. Emotional conflict doesn't excuse neglect or emotional absence. It only explains why a man might act in ways that don't match the feelings he's shown. The reality is, men going through this are caught between their head and their heart. The heart pulls them toward connection, while the head warns them of the risks. Sometimes that warning is strong enough to keep them stuck. Other times, they manage to balance those fears with their desire and choose to lean in instead of pulling away. But in the space between those two outcomes, their behavior often looks like a confusing mix of closeness and distance, affection and withdrawal. Fear of vulnerability is one of the most common but least talked about reasons why a man may hold back even when he truly cares. For many men, opening up doesn't feel natural. It feels like entering dangerous ground. Vulnerability means letting someone see the parts of themselves they usually hide, the fears, the insecurities, the old wounds they've tried so hard to bury. It's not only about sharing emotions, it's about lowering the guard they've relied on to survive. And for some, that protective wall has been standing for years, sometimes even decades. From a young age, many men are taught, directly or indirectly, that emotions should be controlled rather than expressed. They grow up believing that strength is measured by how little they reveal, and that showing too much feeling could be seen as weakness. Even in adulthood, this conditioning can stay deeply rooted. So when they meet someone who awakens real emotions, it doesn't just bring excitement, it can also create discomfort. Suddenly they're faced with the possibility of being fully seen, flaws and all, and that can feel frightening. The fear isn't always about the other person, often it's about the mirror that vulnerability holds up. To open up to someone else, they first have to face themselves. That might mean confronting old pain from past relationships, admitting insecurities they've ignored, or acknowledging fears about what lies ahead. For someone used to being in control of their own story, that loss of control can feel overwhelming. Past experiences play a major part in this too. If a man has been betrayed, left behind, or deeply hurt before, those memories don't simply disappear. They remain quietly in the background, shaping how much he's willing to risk again. Even if he meets someone who feels completely different, someone who seems safe, those old scars still whisper warnings. Be careful. Don't get too close. Remember what happened before. This is why vulnerability can feel both like a longing and a danger. On one hand, there's the deep desire to connect. On the other hand, there's the instinct to protect himself from being hurt again. The real struggle is that vulnerability is exactly what true love requires. Without it, relationships stay on the surface. They feel safe, but they lack the closeness that makes love meaningful. Stepping into openness always means accepting uncertainty. When you're vulnerable, you risk rejection, misunderstanding, or heartbreak. For many men, those risks feel heavier than the possible reward, especially if they've convinced themselves they're fine without deep emotional connection. Fear of vulnerability often shows up in small, subtle behaviors. He might keep conversations light and avoid topics that would reveal too much. He might show love through actions instead of words, believing that if he never says how much he cares, it won't hurt as badly if things end. He may even create emotional distance right when things start to feel serious, convincing himself that pulling away keeps him in control of the pace and depth of the relationship. Sometimes this fear creates a push and pull pattern. He'll move closer when he feels safe, then step back the moment he senses emotional risk. From the outside, this can look like mixed signals, but from his perspective, it's self-protection. He's trying to enjoy the connection while holding enough distance to shield himself. The irony is that this very behavior can slowly destroy the trust and safety he needs in order to feel vulnerable in the first place. It's not that he doesn't want to open up, it's that he doesn't yet feel it's safe. Trust